The sky above the Gobi Expanse shimmered with violet streaks as the Galactic Coalition's lander cruised through the atmosphere, kicking up cyclones of dust in its wake. To Earth's surviving militaries, now unified under a brittle international accord, this arrival was not unexpected, but it was unwelcome. The lander settled on a parched plateau with mechanical grace, deploying shimmering energy pylons that pulsed faintly as they stabilized the air around the vessel. From the gangway descended soldiers clad in reactive armor, glowing softly with embedded tech that adjusted to light, wind, and perceived threat. They moved with clinical efficiency, exuding a confidence only the over-engineered could afford. At their helm strode Commander Threx Varl, a tall figure with silver implants coiled around his temples like a crown. He surveyed the desert with thinly veiled condescension. "This is what they call a base," he muttered, his voice laced with static. The human outpost stood half buried in dust, camouflaged more by neglect than design. No towers, no satellites. Just a few low, weather-beaten structures and rusting aerials. Primitive. Major Sarah Connolly watched from the shade of a makeshift awning, one boot propped on an ammo crate, her rifle resting against the wall behind her. She sipped lukewarm coffee from a cracked metal mug. Her dark eyes followed the coalition troops as they fanned out, scanning the area with floating sensor drones shaped like insects. "They brought bugs," she murmured. Sergeant Imani Reyes, sitting beside her, chuckled. "Bet they think they're the apex predators." "Let them," Sarah replied. "It makes the first shot easier." The coalition had arrived under the pretense of observation, claiming that Earth's integration into the galactic community required military assessment. But everyone knew the truth. The coalition didn't trust Earth, not with its warlike history, not with its stubborn independence, and certainly not with its refusal to digitize every aspect of warfare. The snipers, those relics of Earth's bygone military doctrine, were particularly scorned. During a joint briefing, Threx had struggled to suppress laughter when informed that several human defense units still relied on kinetic projectile weapons and optical scopes. "You mean they look through glass tubes and pull metal triggers?" he had said, smirking. "What charming fossils." Sarah hadn't spoken during the meeting. She had sat silently at the edge of the room, hands clasped, letting the laughter echo through her like wind in a canyon. Threx had not even glanced in her direction. The coalition soldiers began conducting maneuvers within the designated zone, a stretch of low hills and dry ravines that Earth commanders had jokingly labeled a sandbox. It was a place where human snipers trained with outdated, handcrafted rifles and wore ghillie suits woven from local flora. It was also where satellites went blind, where AI lost its grip, and where sensors struggled to make sense of erratic winds and magnetic flares. Nature's interference was Earth's most reliable ally. 3 days passed. The coalition patrolled, scanned, and mocked. Their soldiers moved in tight formations, flanked by buzzing drones and auto turrets, mapping terrain they believed to be under control. In those same 3 days, Sarah and her unit vanished into the desert. 6 of them. No drones, no comms, no powered armor, just custom rifles, ancient optics, and the kind of patience that machines hadn't learned to replicate. Their absence wasn't officially recorded. Coalition forces assumed Earth's units were staying out of the way, which suited everyone. After all, what could a group of camouflaged humans possibly achieve against warriors enhanced with neural combat lattices and predictive targeting? On the 4th evening, as dusk split across the sky, Threx stood atop an armor rover, scanning the terrain through a flickering tactical overlay. His voice came through the command net, calm and sharp. "Prepare for full field movement drills. No resistance expected. Let's give our human friends a demonstration." They moved at twilight, when shadows stretched long and the temperature dipped enough to affect sensor calibration. 40 troops in total, arranged in squads of 5, swept through the ravines in textbook formation. Drones soared overhead, cross-linking visuals to the command core. Everything appeared silent. Still, then, without warning, a helmeted head jerked sideways, clean to the temple, and collapsed before a squad even noticed. The kinetic force of the shot knocked the soldier into a dry crevice. The team stopped. Drones hovered. No alarms. No muzzle flash. "Was that a malfunction?" asked a coalition engineer over the comms. "Check diagnostics," Threx ordered, but he was already frowning. 17 minutes later, another trooper went down, this time from 1.3 kilometers away, a perfect upper spinal shot just below the neck guard. The kill was surgical, precise, untraceable. Threx's tone changed. Deploy perimeter surveillance. Set drones to thermal sweep. No idle protocols. Still nothing. Just wind. Back at base, Sarah crouched beside a weathered boulder, her body wrapped in sand-colored mesh and sweat. Her rifle's bolts cycled smoothly. She adjusted her scope manually, breathing slow and deep. 2 kills. For more shots held in reserve, the others were reporting similar success. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. At 0200 hours, a coalition unit reported their entire platoon had been erased. No visuals, no pings, just sudden silence. The survivors whispered about death without warning, about being watched by ghosts with hollow eyes. Inside the command tent, Threx stared at a scrambled feed, his jaw tight. He requested aerial support. Earth's command denied it. Terms of the agreement, they reminded him. This was supposed to be an observational exercise. No escalation. By sunrise, 23 coalition soldiers had been removed from the simulation. The last one, a decorated plasma trooper, had been shot between the eyes while standing beneath an active surveillance drone. Threx stood in the dawn light, his jaw clenched, his fingers twitching. The scorched wind blew dust across his boots. The air stank of pride cut down. For the first time, he didn't speak. Across the ridge, Sarah adjusted her scope, watching through the haze. She saw confusion, fear, and something deeper in Threx's expression, something she'd waited days to see. Recognition. And the game had only just begun. A coalition recovery drone buzzed low over the canyon floor, its tri-lens eye scanning the blood-dry soil for anomalies. Nothing. Not a footprint. Not a thermal signature. Not even a whisper of electromagnetic residue. The unit's sensors had been recalibrated twice since the incident at Ridge 12, yet still returned the same report. No hostile presence detected. Commander Threx Varl stood beneath a shimmering heat canopy, arms folded behind his back, his face cast in the sterile glow of his visor. Around him, the air shimmered with silent activity. Holographic displays rotated in midair, showcasing topographical readouts, squad locations, and a growing list of null engagements. The redacted term was quickly becoming a euphemism among his officers for sniper kills. Undetected, unprovoked, and untraceable. They're not just good, his lieutenant muttered, eyes glued to a tactical readout. They're invisible. Threx didn't reply. He had reviewed the helmet footage frame by frame. What little of it had survived the kinetic trauma. In the last few milliseconds before death, the camera captured only terrain. No flicker of movement. No muzzle flash. No warning. A flick of dust, perhaps, then the sharp snap of metal-cracking skull. Black. He had led campaigns against plasma rebels on Joran 3, had survived the acid jungles of Mkor. He had never once seen an enemy that could erase a soldier without alerting a single piece of tech. Yet here, on this ancient dirtball of the planet, his elite forces were being hunted by ghosts. The snipers had not responded to any form of contact. No taunts, no demands, no negotiation. Just kill shots. Precise. Measured. Patient. And they weren't random. Threx began to notice a pattern. Every fallen soldier had been part of forward-leaning squads. Scouts trained to probe Earth's defenses. No commanders had been targeted. No high-profile targets. Just enough kills to instill fear. Never enough to provoke full retaliation. It was, he realized, a message. The next afternoon, 2 more soldiers went down, both from different platoons, both in terrain that had already been cleared and secured. This time, Threx had dispatched surveillance drones in triplicate, each programmed to ping every 2 seconds. Yet nothing was seen. No projectile captured. The drone simply blinked, hovered, and continued scanning dead ground. What if they're cloaked? The tech analyst suggested, his voice tight with nerves. They're not using cloaks, Threx snapped. We detect a gravitic ripple or EM bleed. They're not hiding from our tech, they're ignoring it. Sarah calmly watched the coalition's frustration unfold from a hidden perch 600 meters above their command tent. She lay prone beneath a layer of hand-woven netting dusted with grit, her breathing slow, matched to the rhythm of the wind. Her rifle rested beside her, its barrel barely protruding from the stones. She could see Threx through her scope, helmet off, pacing like a man used to control, and now losing it piece by piece. "They're starting to fray," Reyes whispered over the bone mic in her jaw. "Not yet," Sarah replied. "This is just irritation. We're going for erosion." Reyes, stationed in the ravine below, had eyes on the southern patrol. 5 soldiers in standard formation, visors glowing, unaware of the marksmen watching them from the rocks. Sarah marked one in her mind. Not the leader, not the greenest, but the one most likely to take charge when panic set in. "Ready?" Reyes asked. "Wait for the scan sweep." The patrols led drone pulsed outward, a wave of blue light passing harmlessly over the rocks. As the signal faded, Sarah exhaled and squeezed the trigger. The soldier jerked back, head snapping sideways. The body dropped, still cradling his rifle. The others froze, shouting in a burst of static and confusion. Reyes took the next shot, clean through the thigh of the panicking replacement. He screamed, falling into cover. The remaining 3 dug behind rocks, shields flaring to life. Drones darted skyward like hornets, searching, scanning. "You hit him?" Sarah asked. "Non-lethal. Let them bleed a little." Sirens echoed across the ridge. In the distance, Threx's tent erupted with motion, officers scrambling, troops redirecting. But none of them approached. The pattern was too clear now. Each time they moved to recover or retaliate, another unit took a loss. That night, a coalition medic unit attempted to extract a wounded soldier under the cover of a decoy drone swarm. 26 flying bots swirled through the air like chrome locusts, forming a shifting cloud that disrupted line of sight. They hovered, flared, dipped, and yet, when the evac team reached the injured trooper, a single round punched through the smoke, clean into the med officer's chest plate. He collapsed instantly. The bots scattered in chaos. Threx stood before the command hologram that evening, his hands trembling slightly behind his back. His officers spoke in hushed voices, offering suggestions that sounded more like prayers. He dismissed them all. "They are not soldiers," he said finally. "They're predators." No one argued. In the barrens north of the outpost, Sarah and her team gathered silently beneath a stone overhang. The 6 snipers rarely met in person, but tonight required precision. Maps were etched into the dirt. Coordinates whispered. No lights, no data pads. Just voices and memory. "They'll dig in now," Reyes said. "Retract their patrols." "That's the point," Sarah replied. "We don't want kills. We want hesitation." One of the older snipers, Bennick, scratched at his gray beard. "We'll run out of ammo before they run out of bodies." "We don't need to win," Sarah said quietly. "We just need them to realize they've already lost the kind of war we fight." Threx didn't sleep that night. He sat alone in the watchtower, visor off, watching stars swirl above a foreign sky. His men, once the pride of the Coalition Strike Division, now flinched at shadows. A force bred on control was now ruled by uncertainty. For the first time, Threx considered the possibility that Earth's defenses were not outdated, that perhaps, in the age of lasers and drones, the most dangerous weapon remained the one that didn't want to be seen. A ping interrupted his thoughts. One of his outer sentries had gone offline. No warning, no alert, just silence. Again, the morning was colder than usual. A sharp wind cut through the rocks, lifting fine grains of sand into brief spirals before letting them drop without grace. Sarah calmly adjusted the weight of her rifle on her shoulder as she moved, slow and deliberate, across a low ridge. Her footsteps pressed into the soft dirt with the weight of experience, then vanished behind her like she was never there. Below her, through the scope, she watched the Coalition's base shrink on itself. The patrols had thinned. Movement had become hesitant. Routines now staggered and erratic. Gone was a precision choreography of elite soldiers moving with perfect confidence. In its place, caution, hesitation, doubt. Even their drones flew wider arcs, avoiding ridgelines, scanning the sky with twitchy, confused patterns. She almost pitted them. Almost. Status? she whispered, not looking away from the eyepiece. Bravo team holding south flank. Reyes replied through a low calm hiss. No visual, no movement. Wind steady. They've stopped sweeping the outer gulch. Because they're afraid of it now, she said. They don't know the terrain. They just know it kills them. It wasn't just the terrain. It was the silence, the patience. Earth's sniper corps didn't rely on technology to see or strike. They relied on breathing, muscle memory, and silence. Deep, oppressive silence that settled into the mind of every coalition soldier like a virus. The kind of silence that said, "You are not alone. You are being watched. And when you're certain you're safe, you won't be." The unit Sarah commanded, Ghost Viper, had been training in this desert for nearly a decade. Long before the coalition had landed, Earth's brass had already accepted that war would never be won in the open, not against enemies that could outgun and outfly them in every metric. So they invested in the invisible, the overlooked, the forgotten. They sought out men and women who could vanish into stone and sand and wait days for a shot. They trained in analog optics, hand-sign communications, and internal navigation based on star drift and wind memory. Bennick, her second, had once slept 6 nights beneath a fallen satellite wreck to learn how its residual EM field could scramble enemy scanners. Reyes could blend into a salt flat and not move for 18 hours. Even the youngest of them, Private Eden, could reassemble his rifle blindfolded during a windstorm. They didn't use AI. They didn't use implants. They didn't need to. That was what unnerved Threx the most. Inside the Coalition Command bunker, the atmosphere had gone brittle. Officers no longer argued. They whispered. Every plan came with caveats, every movement with second guesses. Threx stared at the latest incident report. A full recon squad gone silent for 3 minutes before reappearing, -2 soldiers. No traces, no recordings. Just gaps, blank spaces in the data. "We need new protocols," his chief analyst said, voice tight. "Predictive algorithms aren't adapting. These humans, they're changing patterns. No logic tree holds longer than 6 hours. They're not following logic trees," Threx muttered. The analyst blinked. "Sir, they're not moving like soldiers. They're moving like predators or artists." He left the room, the data fading behind him. That afternoon, the Coalition launched a test. A decoy squad in powered exo-armor, fitted with reflective surfaces and sensory jammers, was sent into the valley under high-altitude drone surveillance. Sarah and Reyes had eyes on them before they cleared the second ridge. "Paint or punch?" Reyes asked. "Neither," Sarah replied. "Let them sweat." The squad stopped multiple times, clearly uncertain. Their sensors picked up nothing. They began to move erratically, scanning bushes, rocks, sky. One soldier fired into the air at a suspicious shadow that turned out to be a circling hawk. Another shouted into his mic, voice cracking. Their fear became the shot. Bennick, watching from 1,000 meters out, turned to Eden. "You seeing this?" "Yeah, they're breaking before we break silence." "Means they're ready." "For what?" "The lesson." That night, they delivered it. The Coalition's northern communications post, built into a cliff face, went dark without warning. Not destroyed, not stormed, just abandoned. All 6 personnel found unconscious, rifles untouched, visors still glowing. Each had been struck behind the ear with a tranquilizer round, a message. "We could have killed you. We chose not to." When the med drones retrieved the bodies, a handwritten note was found pinned to the wall. "Your machines do not see what matters. We do." Threx read the note twice, then crumpled it in his gloved hand. He didn't speak for a full minute. "Are they trying to provoke us?" one officer asked. "No," Threx replied. "They're teaching us." The next morning, a shift was evident. Coalition troops stopped clustering. Patrols staggered their formations. AI assistance was reduced in favor of human-led observation. Spotters returned to the field. Manual rangefinders were issued. Most importantly, the forward bases started listening. Really listening. Not for sensor pings or movement alerts. For breathing. Wind shifts. Silence. In the hills above, Sarah watched it unfold with muted satisfaction. Her rifle lay in use beside her. "They're adjusting," Reyes said quietly. "They're remembering," Sarah corrected. "War isn't built into software. It's taught by ghosts." She reached into her pack and retrieved an old photograph, black and white, frayed at the edges. A soldier from 50 years ago. Her grandfather. Vietnam. Bolt action. Iron sight. Same discipline. Same stillness. She tucked it back away and turned her attention to the east. They wouldn't need many more shots now. Just one or two. Enough to remind the coalition why Earth hadn't been conquered by drones or algorithms. Because Earth still remembered how to wait, how to watch, and how to strike only when the wind held its breath. The desert air pulsed with heat, yet the coalition troops moved as though stalked by winter. Every glance over the shoulder, every hesitant footstep across sand and stone betrayed the same truth. They were no longer an invading force. They were prey. Commander Threx Varl stood alone at the edge of Outpost Vale, visor raised, eyes narrowed against the glare. Behind him, the distant thrum of machinery echoed like a heartbeat grown tired. What was once a pristine, confident forward base now resembled a ghost town. Camouflage netting sagged. Antennae drooped. Even the drones, once relentless, tireless, now moved like wary insects, cautious in their circuits. The ghost snipers, as the soldiers called them now, hadn't fired a shot in days. That silence cut deeper than any bullet. It had become ritual. His troops rose, armed, patrolled, and returned without contact, yet never without fear. They had begun whispering their plans, as if louder voices would summon death from the stones. He stared toward the high ridgeline, where the shadows never quite sat still. "Commander," Lieutenant Drain's voice broke the quiet. "We've finished the recalibration on our heat scanners. 3% deeper scan into rocky surfaces." Threx didn't turn. "They'll still see nothing." "Sir, they're not hiding in heat signatures. They're hiding in expectations." Drain hesitated, clearly unsure if that was a metaphor or an answer. Threx spared him a glance. "They know what we'll scan before we scan it, because they've been studying us, not the other way around." Drain swallowed hard and nodded. "Yes, sir." Threx watched the trio of soldiers head toward the perimeter gate, nervous and quiet. All three were new replacements. They walked like recruits, their gear shiny, unscuffed, betraying their inexperience. The old veterans, the ones who'd seen the first strikes, didn't talk much anymore. Their silence said everything. They had seen something in those weeks of kills, something that training couldn't prepare them for. In a shallow canyon 2 clicks away, Sarah Conley lay flat beneath the bones of an ancient satellite dish, now little more than rust and memory. Her rifle, disassembled, rested in a foam-lined case beside her. She didn't need it today. No shot had been called. Today was about presence, nothing more. They've stopped moving beyond the inner perimeter. Came Reyes's voice to the bone mic. "They're building fences now." Sarah smirked. "Fences won't hold out ghosts. They think walls equal safety. Let them. That's the last step before withdrawal." "You really think they'll pull out?" "Not because they're ordered to. Because they'll have nothing left to conquer. You can't dominate what you can't define." The sun dipped behind the ridgeline, painting long, slanted shadows across the desert floor. In the fading light, coalition soldiers began sealing the entrance to their data relay hub with carbonated mesh plating, a fortress response to an enemy that had never even breached a wall. They were guarding hardware against whispers, defending algorithms from breath. Sarah watched them silently. Her heartbeat matched the rhythm of the earth, slow, steady, unnoticed. That night, a final message was sent. A single round, non-lethal, hollow-tipped, struck a coalition loudspeaker tower near the center of the base. The impact tripped no alarms, no casualties. But embedded in the shell's cavity was a thin, rolled strip of analog plastic. No radio signal. No code. Just 4 words. "You were never alone." Threx held the message in his hand the next morning, the words etched in faded ink. He read them under the harsh floodlights of the command tent, but it felt like reading a tombstone. He said nothing for a long while. Then quietly, he walked outside, stood beneath the cloudless sky, and removed his helmet. He stared toward the high ridge again, knowing full well there were eyes on him. "I understand," he said aloud. No voice answered. But that wasn't the point. Across the plateau, the snipers withdrew. No fanfare, no trace, no signal. They faded from the rocks, the shadows, the dunes. Sarah slung her rifle across her back and stepped away from the vantage point, boots barely stirring the sand. She didn't need to see the white flag rise. She could feel it in the stillness. Reyes met her at the base of the ridge, his pack already loaded. That's it. No final shot? No need. He nodded and fell into step beside her. Far behind them, the coalition began dismantling sensor towers. Dropships activated in low hover, stirring sand into dry cyclones. There would be no ceremony, no announcement, just absence. The kind Earth had mastered. By the time the last soldier boarded the last carrier, the ghosts had long since vanished into silence they'd ruled from the start. Because war was never won through domination. It was endured through understanding. And the snipers of Earth had never been soldiers. They had always been the memory of resistance made flesh.